Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahe, tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we were left off on verse 4 of chapter 9, verse 3, and start verse 4. So just a recap. So royal means privileged, above and beyond the norm of the mundane. Royal secret, royal knowledge. And it begins by those who this royal secret, royal knowledge is not known, but it's only not known to those who don't qualify themselves to know. So it's never not given, but it needs to be taken. So knowledge is never given, really, it's taken. It can be put in front of you, but you've got to take it. So it's misconstrued as though this knowledge is kept to those who know and is kept away from those who don't. It's never like that. Though in chapter 18, in the last few verses, it says you need not give this knowledge to those who don't have those qualifications to hear it. You're wasting your time. So it seems like a contradiction, but it always just means that if you want to gain this knowledge, you've got to be putting yourself in a position where you're available, where you qualify, where you are not devoid of a charitable disposition, where you're not devoid of service, yajna, where you're not devoid of knowledge, you take on board knowledge. So you qualify yourself by pursuing those paths or embarking on those paths. Shraddha, you're not devoid of Shraddha. These are the last few verses, traits given in chapter 18. It's the same thing here at the beginning. So it sounds that one shouldn't give it. It's nothing to do with that. It's just that you've got to qualify yourself. You've got to become that student who's in that position to take that knowledge. So that requires your effort. So this secret is to be known. Know self, Brahman, truth, Atman, whatever you want to call it, can make you change your point of view from where it is. So when our life is focused on our material factors of a body, mind, and intellect, you've got to almost revolutionize your thinking away from the focus outward, because we're bombarded all day long with information. Some of it may be relevant to our path, and the majority, 99%, is irrelevant to what we're doing, what our spiritual pursuit is, our quest for truth. So we've got to turn it all upside down and go within. We do that through the disciplines of karma, bhakti, jnana yoga. And the topic that we're looking at today, 1 to 10, and last week, the self pervades the self, pervades the world. So the world's what you experience. But he's saying in this chapter There's nothing but the self, the Brahman, only Brahman. The rest of what we see, perceive, feel, and think is just a reflection. So when you look in the mirror, what do you see? It's not any trick question, just simple. Guru.
Reflection?
Your reflection, yes. Whether we like it or not. If you don't like it, you sometimes do a few more things to it. Whatever. But it's a reflection. Can you claim that reflection to be you? That image in the mirror, is it you? What do you say?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. And what way is it yes?
Well, because you're seeing yourself, but then at the same time it's not you, but then at the same time it's not you. It's a tricky
The
one.
Upanishad. We'll do Ken Upanishad now. So you know it's not you. Would you take that person in the mirror with you somewhere, all the places? You know that's a reflection of your image. Yes? But because you're hooked on the image of you right now, you think that that's you. Our body, mind, and intellect. So we're convinced that it's us. Yet if you got dirt on your face, remember this simple example. Will you go to the image in the mirror and clean it? Is it yes or no? Who's going to say yes or no? Yes? No? Any?
No, we
No.
apply it on the, we clean the source, not the image.
Yes. If I see a speck on my face now in the image I'm seeing on the screen, it'd be very silly if I start cleaning the screen. It's not going to go from there. I have to clean it here. So we right now are experiencing the world, and it's saying there's only a Brahman. There's only Brahman. So it's a reflection, an entanglement. We even know it when there's one sun, as per example, relatively speaking, compared to the Brahman. But in the world, we see reflections of the sun. You go to some part of the world, you get a definite reflection of the sun. Where in England, it's very vivid, we're wondering where it is. On a sunny day, we all get out there. Not all of us, but some of us get out there, take off all the clothes. The sun is out, we know about it. So it's a reflection, though it's not the sun. We're seeing the reflection. It's difficult to see the sun directly, but it's easier to see the reflection in the world of the sun. It's difficult to see the truth, the self, directly, but we'll never rest content till we get there. That's the thing to remember. So we're resting our lives on reflections. And the whole idea to get to your truth is to get to that self-sufficiency, that paripurna, that fullness, completeness. Looking outward, it's the world of junk. Your ticket out of getting out of that junk is your morning study. Between the hours of what? Is anybody familiar? What are the hours of morning study and reflection?
2 to 6.
4 to 6. So once you grab this, You'll never let go of this 4 to 6. Okay, maybe 5. But after 6, you know it's rubbish. Whatever you're taking in is rubbish. If you can't do 5, 6, do whenever you can, but make it early. So this is about getting to this Brahma, this Brahman. This is how we're going to see this self, or envisage our journey towards the self. So it said in 3, knowledge of the self is a purifier, and with Shraddha, that consistency of purpose to something higher. One doesn't get caught up in the monotonous life of worry and anxiety, the cycles of birth and death. So one's got a standardized life, got to drop the dross of desires. What do we mean by that? Anybody? What do we mean by standardizing your life? Yeah.
Being balanced in the dualities of the world.
Okay, practically.
Pleasure and pain, not responding to the highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
How
do you do that?
Because we know the experiences are fleeting and they are impermanent. So that comes through the jnana mark, where we learn about something which is beyond this world, beyond time, space, causation.
Mm-hmm. So very, very practically, how can you standardize life? So you can only do what Vidya's saying if you get up and study. You've got to get to getting up and studying. You can reflect on those ideas, really. You're going to get up and study. You start to think of, oh, where do I trip up when I get upset, or there's a pleasure and I get involved. You can reflect on it when you step yourself out. Best time to do that is in the morning. That's one aspect of this process of standardization. You fix the time to take in knowledge, to study and reflect. But what have you got to do in order to get that? What are the helpful tips? I'm making it very practical so that you can move on it. What can help declutter your head so you can get that focus? Renu.
Try and, especially now at Christmas, not to look on the outside world and try to make everything perfect. So trying not to be happy with what there is and not always look outside for the next best thing. So simplify your life and not look outside for the next best thing.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, spirit of Christmas.
Yeah, and like, I think the one that comes up again and again is do something for others, so that beyond your own self. So if you stop thinking about your own self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the spirit. So you said something in there which helps you do all of that. Simplify things. Simplify it. Do you have to have X, Y, Z? Question what you need, whatever you need. Have that. Each person's need is different. Have that, do that, but know where your excess is so you can remove that. Remove it. Don't keep what you don't need. Get on to the jobs that you are not doing. Do your hard jobs first. Don't avoid it. Life will pass you by and you've avoided all the relevant things that you're supposed to do. Then at the last minute you're thinking, oh, I should have done that. It's really, this is simplifying life. So if you've got those things done, you can move forward to where you've got to go. If you're clearing away those reflections that you don't need, keeping what you need, and actually where you need something, go and make the efforts to pursue it so you can actually support your path, something bigger. It's not saying drop everything, it's actually simplifying, streamlining life. If one person needs 10 pairs of shoes, have 10 pairs. If another person needs 20, have 20. But if you know you only need 3 or 4, then have that. Don't go beyond that. Don't look at somebody else. Because it just makes life easier for you. And we're all different. So then you can assess what needs to be done in each situation. It's not dependent on you. You just do what needs to be done. Standardize. We had another question, Shraddha. What is it? Ash, go ahead.
Sorry, Oni, I was just going to ask him, the challenge is knowing what you need to simplify it, I guess. Mm-hmm. Because until you have that level of consciousness or awareness, you think you need everything. You indulge without knowing you're indulging. So would it be this sort of study, and it would be through this that you'd start to work towards that awareness? So I'm just thinking, even now,
yes.
You know, I'm sure I can simplify my life a lot more, but at the moment, I probably feel I need the things around me, but maybe in years to come, they'll start falling away.
You won't know they're there. One cup of tea, not you, but anybody. So yes, you start with study, your reflections in your morning study. You start with, you've got to keep your head with knowledge. You've got to keep yourself with karma, service, putting back into your society. That's cleansing you. It's not cleansing anybody else. You've got to keep yourself with that devotion, that identification. If you don't identify, you'll feel yourself isolated. You'll have the problem, nobody else. Then when it comes to material and physical things, you've got to keep track of what you need, what you don't need, get rid of what you don't need. It's very difficult to do because we have attachments to things. Immediately we come in contact with them. That's the problem. But as I've said again and again and again, you have to experience, if you experience it and see the growth in it, and you see that the worthwhileness in it, then you may change your mind about the things that you think you need and realize that you don't need. And one great place to do that is at the Academy. So I keep harping on that because it's a great training of standardizing your life without you knowing, because your focus is always on discussion of something higher, reflection on something higher. The karma is always based upon how you're going to evolve yourself, refine yourself. The bhakti is also on that. So the collective of like-mindedness, where everything is streamlined, you don't have to think about your clothes, your meals, your what have you. So because it's streamlined to the higher values of life, you get an insight of how to live life wherever you are. Because you understand it's not worth having X, Y, Z. It'll wreck your mind. That indulgence is a heavy price to pay for your peace of mind. Better not have it. It's much more progressive to streamline. It's because there's a word in the Ishavasya Upanishad, I think, Vijagupsa. When you see ostentation and indulgence, it's distasteful. Vijagupsa. Yuck. Yeah, you understand why people do it, because they're attached to the world, thinking what makes them happy. So the Brahman is not seen. So I'll keep going on like a record broken. I'll be off to the academy at the end of the month, end of January, and there in February. There's 2 retreats going on. If anybody would like to join, or even anyway. Opportunity staring you right in the face. Those who can take it will take it. Let's go. We had the question, Shraddha, similar to what we're talking about, in fact. Tim, what was the question?
The question was, do you have Shraddha?
Do you have Shraddha? What's Shraddha? Anybody? Keep using this word.
Faith.
Faith. Just faith? What do you mean by faith?
Faith, so that you are then able to take in the knowledge. Otherwise, you won't be able to absorb it.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else wants to add? Tanisha? Vijay?
Is it until you become self-realized, you have to believe in it?
Mm-hmm. So faith, belief, till you get to that ultimate goal, self-realization. Yeah. Good. What else? What allows you? What helps you? Guru?
It's unwavering faith backed by the knowledge.
Mm. So it's unwavering consistency. In anything one does, one has to have consistency of purpose, unwavering. Lots of distractions come in the way. You've got to have consistency. And it's got to be backed by logic, reason. You can project that much. It's not blind. It's a knowledge. Good. Anything else? So coming back to the question. Do you have Shraddha? Who dares to answer?
I was going to say, I think you need a lot of discipline too, don't we? To get there, which is hard sometimes.
Trip to the academy will show you the way. Really worth it. The sooner the better. Then you'll see, then you'll come back and say, I didn't believe what I was missing. Right now, I don't know what it is. So you feel it's okay, chalta. Doesn't matter if I'm there or here, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, it's going on. And yeah, I do this class. You might tell your friends, I do this class on a Wednesday morning, Bhagavad Gita. You should come along too. You might even tell them. But you have to think, what do you do after this class? Do you actually do something about your own? It's not my development. your own development to do something about it. So Shraddha takes discipline. So question, do you have Shraddha? Maybe we don't answer it, maybe we answer it. It's up to you. What do you have Shraddha in? Guru.
I know I want to have Shraddha, but I think deep inside, I am not there yet. So I think the sessions like these basically are, personally, I think for me, sessions like these are, avenues where I would be able to cultivate, through knowledge. And which is also the reason why I attend these sessions regularly.
So maybe we need to give you one wax, so do it in the morning. Yeah, so you understand there's something there. You want to have that. So anybody else? No, Tim?
Shraddha is, in one sense, extending what we do in this class to every moment of your day. What you do in the day, which might be mundane, you pull back and say, why am I doing this? How should I do this better? What should I be doing? It's a constant attack, an extension of the class to one's everyday moment.
So you've got to think about what you're doing. You know, if the class does anything, just help yourself to your study. You have to do it daily for yourself. Not to show off to anybody, just for your own growth, to understand why you're here. Then you can extend it slowly, slowly out to your day. What are you doing here? Even if you're not doing study, what are you doing in this? So Shraddha, big word. Let's go from here onwards. 4.
Maya tadamidam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtina matstani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavarstitaha.
Renu, if you could read the verse.
All this world is pervaded by me in the unmanifested form. All beings dwell in me, and I do not dwell in them.
Okay. So all this world's pervaded by me. So the question would be, the world is pervaded by the self, the Godhead, everywhere. And the question would be, why don't we see it? Some of us might say we see it, but effectively, we see different perceptions, emotions, thoughts. The fact that we are riddled with our own desires, we don't see the self, it's obscured. So the idea that's put forward in the Shastras, that the non-apprehension, not seeing the Brahman, gives rise to a misapprehension that we see the world. So when we don't comprehend this Brahman, instead we misapprehend it as something else. And what it's saying is we see the world. Just as we can understand in the simple example a young child goes into a dock in the corner of a garage and suddenly sees, it's dark, suddenly sees a shape and comes running out and saying, a snake, a snake, a snake. But in actual fact, when you go in, you see a rope. The fact that they didn't see the rope, they misapprehended it, got frightened. They had every feeling that they saw it. They're terrified. It's really real. But they saw a snake. It's saying here, this whole thing that we see, the world is just because of our ignorance that we don't see the truth. So all dwell in me, but I don't dwell in them. The moment one sees the Supreme Self, the equation is that the plurality of this world folds back. Everything you see in this world, everything we can imagine, it folds back. There's no world. But that conception is unimaginable at this moment in time because we see the world. But it's like the waves in the ocean. When the surf is so high, we just see that big wave. And then we see lots of little waves. But we don't see the vast sheet of water of the ocean. We see the waves, we get involved in that. So we see the world and not the Brahman. So this idea is we've got to transcend our body, mind, intellect, our perceptions, emotions, and thoughts. We've got to refine it so we get over it. The knowledge is just there to rattle you out of it, like a dream lion, push you out of it. Instead, we get caught up fighting with, I know, you don't know, mine's better than yours. I want what you have. The kingdom of heaven is within. So we see all that's manifest and not that which is unmanifest. We can't conceive what's actually there. We're always looking in the mirror. We don't look to see our true image. That's what it amounts to. So it's like saying the finite is in the infinite, but the infinite is not in the finite. You can understand that. Brahman doesn't dwell in beings. Brahman doesn't have, this truth doesn't have a birth or a death. We're in a very, we think it's forever, but we're in a very small construct of this universe in accordance to the Brahman, the Self, the truth. So we don't see the change. We don't see the wood for the trees, as it were. We just see what our little world is. But that Brahman, thou art, is pervading everywhere. So we got to get our heads around that. All the things that we perceive as so real and we get caught up in, and that's good or that's bad. Take a step back. It's just a play on the stage. Take a step back. There's something bigger than that you've got to keep your focus on, keep your shraddha on, keep your discipline, your tapaha on. Not get lost in the world. Consumes you, consumes your time, consumes your emotion, consumes everything. Got to keep, every time you get knocked, pull yourself back. It's not that. Don't waste my time there. Let's get on to what we should be doing. Do our obligations, which are partly non-essential, made by ourselves, and get on to the real truth. Keep doing that. Have to assess, get the discipline. Let's read it.
Brahman, God, exists as the unmanifest reality. Brahman pervades everywhere. There exists nothing but Brahman. Yet the deluded masses see a manifest world of beings. They do not recognize the underlying reality, Brahman. They superimpose an illusory world upon the reality, like a deluded child imposes a ghost upon a post in the dark. The post is the substratum of the ghost. It pervades every part of the ghost. The ghost's existence depends upon the post, but the post's existence does not depend upon the ghost. The post exists even without the ghost. Similarly, Brahman exists without the world, but the world's existence depends upon Brahman.
You can think about this again later. You should review these verses. Go ahead.
All beings exists in Brahman, but Brahman does not exist in beings. The origin, the source, the substratum of beings is Brahman. Like the ocean remains the source of waves, waves exist in the ocean, but the ocean does not exist in them. There can be no waves without the ocean, but ocean can remain without waves. Krishna, using I to mean Brahman, declares this truth. All beings exist in me, but I do not exist in them.
So we may have some questions here, but let's go. So we'll go to verse 5. Just a second.
Pashya me yogamayshvaram bhutabrinna cha bhutasthaha mamatma bhutabhavanaha.
Sam, if you could read the verse. Thank you.
Verse 5. Nor do beings dwell in me. Behold my divine yoga, bringing forth and supporting beings. Myself does not dwell in them.
Just to complicate matters. Yeah, it says. So, nor do beings dwell in me. Behold my divine yoga, bring forth and supporting all beings. So, as mentioned, everything derives from the Brahman. That's the substratum upon the universe as a risen. Just like the wave comes out of the ocean. As we just mentioned, the ocean is not the wave. The waves have a beginning and an end. The ocean has no beginning, no end in the perspective that we see it. So now he's saying, all beings dwell in me, nor do beings dwell in me. Previously we were saying that. In fact, when we're discussing these sorts of verses, you've got to understand the comparisons that we use have one or two aspects that we can discuss to explain what we're trying to put forward. You can't take them beyond certain boundaries. And what happens actually in some of the Upanishads, because this is sounding contradictory, they will give one example and there'll be a flaw in that example, so they'll give another example to correct it, and so forth, till you actually get to the ultimate idea, because there's always a flaw in the comparison somewhere. It's got a parameter. So you can't, the idea is you can't really explain Brahman. So this universe is like a snake coming out of the rope. That's what we can say. The rope, the substratum, and whoever sees it as a snake is given that projection. So it's just trying to put forward, there's a misconception, there's an illusion. In this verse, he's putting, there's no snake and there's no rope. And that's also true. From the perspective of the Brahman, there's no snake, there's no rope. From our perspective, there's snake and rope and everything. Like there's rope, you see the rope. So let's go again. You see the snake. You see the projection on the rope. Here he's saying there's no rope, there's no snake, there's no world. He's saying that it's just Brahman. Why does he say that? Because we see the snake coming out of the rope to accommodate, as he says, the snake is coming out of the rope. We see a pluralistic phenomena of nama, rupa, names and forms. We see this world. We see this world because we lost sight of the Brahman. But note, those who become that Brahman no longer see the world as it is. That pluralistic phenomena, that world folds back. Just like in your dream, when you wake up, the dream is no longer there. So all this doing it is qualifying different positions. No world has ever come out of Brahman, is saying here, nor beings dwell in me. There's nothing there. It's all illusory. That image in the mirror is not me. It's just a reflection, it's illusion. So there's nothing there really of truth. There's only Brahman. There's only. So as we get lost in the reflection, we don't see what it is. So once we've got to grips with that, once we've digested that, it's correcting it and saying, okay, there's no reflection at all. It's just that truth. But through that divine yoga, there's a false projection of this world. It's fantastic. What is the union of finite and infinite? So you see the world and there's a Brahman. The Brahman and the world are together as far as we're concerned. But what we're seeing are qualities and descriptions of Brahman, the truth. Because this truth can't be known in this world. It's all, the finite doesn't support the infinite, as it were. You've got to use the finite to get out to the infinite. You can only project. So all that we're projecting is indicators. So everything in this world is not, it's relative. indicators. So we have to use all that we know to get to something that we don't know. There's a beautiful analogy in the Puranas called Chandrasekhanaya. It's called the moon branch analogy. So when you want to see the moon and you don't know where it is on a dark evening, but you can see the moonlight, so you can't see the moonlight yet, but you can see there's light. So you look at the tree, you position your eye along the tree. Somebody's asking you, you tell them to move their eye along the trunk, and then out to the branch, then out to the thinner branch, then to the twig, then to the edge of the leaf. And there you look beyond and you see the moon. And then you go, oh yeah, I can see the moon now. So we've got to do that in our path, go from A to B to C in our karma bhakti jnana yoga. But yet when we get to that tip and we see the moon, that moon is not at the edge of the tree. It's not there. It's far beyond the tree. So we've got to drop our yoga, karma, bhakti, jnana, to transform, to get to that beyond the periphery of the tree. Got to let go at that stage. Can't get stuck with the indicators, because the indicators are not the truth. They're just the indicators to lead us to the truth. They're not the truth. So we might do all sorts of things and get a wow factor, an emotional buzz. Something elevates us. We get more of a perception of something universal. But he's saying it's not that. It's something beyond that. But you've got to use all that to get there. So don't get stuck with that, but don't drop it either until you get to the very periphery. So the idea here is you've got to go beyond. To whatever, there's no use even knowing Bhagavad Gita, any Upanishad or any Shastra back to front, up and down. There'll come a stage where you realize the tree has nothing to do with the moon, but it takes you to see it. All this study and learning has nothing to do with the truth, but it leads you to the edge to get you to transform it into it. They're indicators. You've got to go beyond the knowledge. Don't just drop the knowledge just yet though. You've got to get onto the knowledge first, and the karma, and the bhakti. You can't drop any of it. You've got to have that shraddha, conviction, and discipline to get onto it. So, that which enables you to feel and think. He's saying none of these dwell in me. They're indicators. The world's made up of time, space, and causation. They appear eternal, all-pervading, and infinite, a reflection of the Brahman. When you understand that, you've got to go beyond that. You don't get stuck with it. The time, space, and causation are awfully out of our remit. He's saying you've got to go beyond that. Got to go beyond the illusion. It's like seeing a mirage, but when you go towards it, you realize it's not there. It's like seeing the silver in the Atma Bodh. There's many metaphors and similes. One is of a shiny shell on the sand and the shore. You see the silver, so your eye goes towards it. But when you get there, you just see it's a reflection of the light, and the silver in the oyster disappears. We've got to get ourselves to that stage. Let's read it.
Verse 4 states, Brahman, I, does not exist in beings, but beings exist in Brahman, me. This verse states Brahman does not exist in beings, nor do beings exist in Brahman. There appears a contradiction in the second part of these two statements. The earlier verse admits the existence of beings in Brahman, while the later verse denies the existence of beings in Brahman. This deliberate contradiction only further confirms the non-existence of beings. The existence of beings, as admitted in verse 4, has only an illusory appearance to the eyes of the deluded. Beings do not actually exist. Brahman alone exists. The enlightened one experiences this truth. He sees Brahman alone supporting the illusory phenomenon of this world.
So you've got to sit with this sort of idea in the morning. No use thinking about this later in the day until you're really thinking it through all the time. Let's read a little more. Don't worry if it's either scary or not going in. You can re-look at this again and again.
Krishna declares the divine union between the projected world of polarity and the one homogeneous reality, Brahman. How this world ultimately dissolves into the primeval source, Brahman. Just as the dream world folds back to its source, the waker's mind. The one waker's mind brings forth and supports the entire polaristic dream world. While in the dream, you do not see the connection between the dream world and your mind. Only on waking from the dream, you understand their connection, that your mind alone projected the erstwhile dream. Similarly, on awakening to God consciousness, upon realizing the self, you will see the union between this waking world and God, Brahman. How Brahman originates and supports every aspect of this world.
So you have to reflect on this. So with that, we'll end today's class, and it's next. So we have Christmas break, I think, isn't it? Remember the whole idea of Christmas, to know thyself. Is the idea to be Christ-like, that figurehead. It doesn't matter what name you use, Krishna, Christ. It doesn't matter. They're all names to elevate, inspire you to get to a certain status out of this world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.